Today on the Stay-at-Home Chef, I'm showing you how to make perfect blueberry pie. There's nothing quite like a slice of homemade blueberry pie. Today I'm going to show you how to make both the crust and a delicious blueberry pie filling. So let's go ahead and start with the crust. You'll need 2.5 cups of all-purpose flour. I'm only going to pour about half of the flour in for now. You'll need 2 tablespoons of sugar, but once again, just pour in half of it for now. And then a teaspoon of salt and just half of it for now, and give this just about 2 or 3 pulses to combine. Then we're going to take off the lid and add in our butter and shortening. I find that this combination yields the flakiest pie crust. You'll need 12 tablespoons of salted butter, and you want to make sure it's really cold. And you can see that I've cut the butter into little cubes, and this will make it easier to mix in with all of our dry ingredients. Then I also add in about 8 tablespoons or half a cup of chilled shortening. And I try to dice it up a little as well too. Then we're gonna pop the lid back on and pulse this. Pulse it for 15 to 20 seconds until it looks like you have little pebbles inside. Then we're gonna add in the remainder of our dry ingredients that we kept out last time. So get the flour in, the sugar, and the rest of the salt. And then we're gonna pulse this again until it's nice and crumbly and looks like cornmeal. Next, we're gonna add in our liquids. I use a combination of both chilled water and chilled vodka. That may sound a little bit strange, but the vodka prevents the formation of gluten and gives you the flakiest pie crust every time. And don't worry, all of the alcohol bakes out while baking, so you don't have to worry about it adding any alcohol type flavor. It just makes sure that your pie crust is perfect. Make sure that your water is nice and cold and pour that in. You can pulse it a little bit and then pour in that chilled vodka. Then we're going to divide our dough into 2 equal pieces so that we have a top crust and a bottom crust. And then just wrap each piece tightly with plastic wrap. Pop these in the fridge and let them chill for about 1 hour. At this point, you'll also need to take care of your blueberry pie filling because it needs to sit for an hour as well. You'll need 4 cups of blueberries. You want to make sure you're using fresh blueberries for this and not frozen because those will have too much liquid. Then pour on 1 cup of sugar and toss the blueberries together with the sugar. We're going to let these blueberries sit at room temperature for an hour while we wait for our pie crust dough to chill. After the blueberries have had a chance to sit for an hour, you'll add in 3 tablespoons of cornstarch, 1 tablespoon of lemon juice, 1/4 teaspoon of ground cinnamon, a pinch of ground nutmeg, and a pinch of salt. And toss this all together. You want to stir it until there's no more visible white cornstarch left, and then set that aside. Next, it's time to roll out our pie crust. On a well-floured surface, you're going to roll out your crust into a 12-inch circle. Now, traditionally in pie making, you only want to roll out your crust once. If you make a mistake and you have to re-roll, you're going to end up with a tough crust. But that's exactly why I use vodka in the crust. This will keep it flaky even if you have to re-roll it. Then you just want to transfer your crust into a deep dish pie plate. You should have enough crust that it hangs over the edges of the pie plate. Next, we'll put our filling in there. We'll just scoop it all in there with all of those liquids and juices and sticky, sugary mess and spread it out over the bottom. Next, it's time to work on our top crust. With a juicy berry pie like this, you want to make sure you have a lot of ventilation so that the liquid has a chance to evaporate while baking. In order to do this, I'm going to do a woven top crust. Now with this second piece, we're going to roll it into a large rectangle. You want it to be about 13 by 10 inches, so a little bit larger than a standard piece of paper. Then we're going to use a butter knife to cut it into strips. Just trim off the edges a little bit. This doesn't have to be perfect. And then cut it into approximately 1-inch strips. You should end up with 8 strips. If they become difficult to work with, just lay them out on a baking sheet and pop them into the freezer for a few minutes to firm up. Then we're going to start weaving this together. So first you lay out 4 strips right on top. You'll want to be sure to space out those strips fairly evenly. Then we'll start weaving in our last 4 strips, so I like to place it on there, and then just every other one into a weaving pattern. And just keep working. Let's see, but this one will go under until you get the whole thing weaved together in a nice little crosshatch pattern. Sometimes I just need to stop and think about it for a second, so I make sure I stick to the weaving pattern. Then we need to deal with our edges. First, I use some kitchen scissors to trim off all of the excess strips of dough. Once you get it all trimmed, then we're going to gently pinch the edges together. Now you could just pinch the edges together, or you can roll it and crimp it for a prettier look. I actually like my pies to have a little bit more of a rustic look, so I just roll the edges and tuck them in, and since I'm using a fluted pie pan, it actually looks really pretty. Last, you want to brush on some lightly beaten egg right onto the crusts, and then finally just sprinkle on about a tablespoon of sugar right onto that lattice top. Next, we're gonna bake this in a 425-degree oven for 25 minutes. After 25 minutes, reduce the temperature to 375 degrees and continue baking your pie for another 30 to 35 minutes until that top crust is golden brown and the juices are bubbling and set. Thanks for watching. You can find the full written recipe in the video description. Be sure to subscribe, like, and follow, and check out the rest of my recipes where you can find hundreds of restaurant quality recipes you can easily make at home. See you later.